Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, just a little bit about Sarveda. At Sarveda, we believe in living a conscious, compassionate, and healthy life inspired by ancient wisdom of yoga, Ayurveda, music, and meditation. Our endeavor is to light up the lives of those around us with the sacred science of well being. And we strive to create valuable resources and promote products that embody this lifestyle of being authentic, sustainable, and earth friendly. We have a very, very special guest today, Siddharth Venkat. So, welcome, Siddharth, and thank you for joining us. I'm just going to share a little bit about Siddharth before I hand it over to him. Siddharth is an educator and a musician who spent the last 5 years exploring the healing soundscapes of the mind. With a unique and intuitive approach, his methodology is not just restricted to the beautiful yet conventional singing bowls and gongs, but rather focus on diversity. Tribal instruments feature very heavily in his processes. Sid utilizes subliminal suggestivity to our minds and ears to open out spaces and realms of reflection, introspection, love, and learning in his sessions. So, Sid will introduce us to ancient indigenous musical instruments as well that he's been using in his journey of healing and transformation for himself as well as his clients. So, thank you again, Siddharth. I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little more about yourself and your journey.
Sure. Thank you so much, Priya. Hello, everybody. My name is Siddharth. And as Priya introduced, I work with sound. I work with sound in many, many different ways. And I'd like to spend maybe a few minutes just telling you all about the kind of ways that I do work with sound. I primarily work with reviving indigenous, ancient, and forgotten musical instruments. I do this through performances, workshops where we talk about sound, such as what some of this webinar would comprise, workshops where we make instruments, learn how to play them, and then take them home, and also through sound journeys, sound baths, or as some people call it, sound healing. Um, I find that these indigenous ancient instruments hold a lot of value. And as opposed to perhaps in some shape or form instruments of today, more modern instruments, these indigenous instruments really demand a sort of focus. It's not that easy to tap into an encyclopedia of information, a roster of material, or a bunch of classical formats that a guitar, a piano, a veena, or a sitar might have, a miridangam or a tabla. In fact, it's very likely if learning one of those instruments in today's paradigm that we will probably learn it from one of these roots. However, some of the indigenous tribal instruments I work with, they sort of demand a grounding, an access to more introspective, therapeutic, and community and love-based spaces of the mind, which I find that modern instruments don't necessarily demand today the way that these instruments do. So maybe I will first show you a few of the instruments that I work with and then explain a little bit more of the context with which I work with them. And we can take it from there. These are called asalatos. It's actually the term coined by an African man who went to Japan in the 80s. This used to be called the kaskas because of the sound kaskas. And it's originally a West African instrument. It's made from a sorekai or a lauki, a bottle gourd, a variety of the gourd family called Spinosa oncova. It's also known as the fried egg tree because the flower looks like a half-boiled egg. And this particular gourd, which grows beautifully and perfectly round in the west coast of Africa, is what they used to make this instrument and what they've been using to make this instrument for generations and perhaps millennia. So, unfortunately, it's kind of forgotten in West Africa. But around the 80s, I mentioned that the term assalato was coined for this instrument. It's because it's gotten repopularized by the Japanese in the last 30 to 40 years. And through there, spread through Southeast Asia and also to India, where for the last 5 years, I have been the sole promoter of this instrument, which is kind of unfortunate because of its simplicity and depth of mind. Salato, it's a very simple instrument that requires body movement. I gift it to some of my friends in the IT department, and when they're on the phone for a business call, they're doing this like a fidget spinner. So, I mean, it's these instruments are not just demanding of the player to be in the moment, but somehow very intuitive, somehow very holistic and multidisciplinary, not just about the music. In fact, more often than not, not really about the music at all. It's possible to go in a completely different direction. And I think sound journeys and sound healing is one of them. So this is one of the instruments. Other one is one that some may be familiar with. This particular version is called the Morsing. It's from a family called the mouth harp family because there are 4,000 names for this instrument, variations of this instrument, 4,000. So that's really
Wow.
quite a lot. Probably the most from any instrument. So essentially, were you able to hear that?
Yes,
Oh,
we can
thank
hear
God.
you.
Okay. Okay, cool. So essentially, this is another extremely ancient instrument. The concept of this is that two solid things and one pliable thing in between, that you use your mouth like a cave to echo. So essentially, all of the concepts from all of these instruments follow some sort of biomimicry, a copying of nature's patterns or concepts in nature. And this particular one, the Morsing or the Mathap family, uses this concept of a lamellophone. Two solid things, one pliable thing, space to echo. In this case, our mouths. But if you look at it even deeper, instruments like the guitar, the veena, the sitar, the banjo, they've all come from this. It's the same concept. The box of the guitar
Right?
is the mouth. So this is a very early prototype for many, many much more advanced and melodic instruments,
Wow.
but can also go very deep in and of its own and not necessarily musically again, but just for the sake of sound. So this is one more. The third one that I work with is the didgeridoo. This is a portable version. This is originally an Australian instrument. Aboriginals or First Nation
Yes.
peoples, as they like to be called today, um, created this instrument, have a whole culture around it. They, in fact, have a holy rock, Uluru, it's called, in the
Yes.
center of the desert near Ayers Rock is another name, is I guess, the Australian name for it. But this is, again, a very ancient and intuitive tube. It's just a pipe, end of the day. It's just a hollow, long piece. This is a portable one. Most didgeridoos are actually quite long, but this is a portable version. First, show you what it sounds like. So, again, this has a beautiful story because they're originally made from bamboo and eucalyptus. The story about the eucalyptus is that the tribal people would listen to the branches or the trunks of the trees singing to them. and those are the pieces that they would cut. They would also hit the younger eucalyptus trunks, the trunks of younger eucalyptus trees, to listen to the sound. And the sound it created would tell them whether or not that trunk was hollowed out naturally by termites. And those are the kind of pieces which you really want because the sound is perfect. And so that is again like a very deep cultural connection to this instrument, just with as with the others, that I find very fascinating, and I find also completely match up to the concept of why these instruments have a vibrational power and why they can be used therapeutically and in healing. Just going very quickly back to this instrument to say a couple of stories. This is the Tamilian morsing, but in Rajasthan you have the morchang. It's a slightly different design, but almost the same. And there's a story about a Rajasthani princess who was too busy. So her prince was too busy with affairs of the state every day, wouldn't have no time for her. So she would pine away every evening on her balcony. And at the end of the compound, there was a blacksmith on the other side of the wall who would see her every evening pining away. So he made for her a morchang and gave it to her. And soon crowds would flock to her balcony, underneath the balcony every evening to listen to her play. So, I mean, the power of music, the power of vibration, the understanding that these instruments and sound can play crucial roles in community and in well being. There is a bamboo version of this called the gogona, which I also make, I sell, I take workshops to play. So, the gogona is played by women in Assam, and it's made of bamboo and it's kept in their hair. They take it out during the season of Bihu and play a particular kind of beat. So there's so many stories and
Wow.
culture and concept that can be related to these instruments just to start off with, which I find very, very intriguing. I'll just quickly show you the rest of the instruments that I do have. There's a small, cute frog, which is also a frog.
And what is this instrument called?
Frog, because it sounds like a frog. So this is a frog. I mean, in real life, it mimics the sound of a frog. Couple of rattles and stuff, and this very unique piece called a nose bird, a muga pakshi, which basically is played through the nose and the connection between the nose and the mouth. So the idea is that this is just a connection between the nose and the mouth, and any sound can be played, and it's a great accompaniment to jam along with for any track. So yeah, that is one more. Couple of bird sound noises. So why I find these instruments so unique is, as I mentioned before, they force you to go inward quite deeply. And in our day and age, our capitalistic, urbanized, fast-paced mindset day and age, I think that's something that's like direly lacking. And when you look at like instruments like the guitar, which was, I'm also a guitarist. It is the first instrument I learned. And I was in a rock and roll band in my teens in the mid 2000s in Bangalore. So I also, in that way, have had a very conventional, in some ways, musical teenage years. It was like I would learn like a Metallica song or a Nirvana song or something like that. And that's how I would start learning. But very, very few people buy a new guitar and not care about the tuning and not copy anybody and just mess around for like 3 days or 3 months or 3 years or 30 years. Very few people do this approach. And there is a reason for it to a certain degree. It's because a guitar is meant to be used with chords in so many ways, the patterns that we do use it today. However, the initial relationship, the initial phase of time between a person and the instrument is really, really crucial. And I find that that is something not as much focused on. So this initial relationship between a person and the instrument, super duper important. And instruments like the asalato, the morsing, and the didgeridoo inherently bring that out. I'd like to, if possible, I don't know how many people are in the meeting, but maybe we could try an exercise. I'm just going to whistle a song. Does anybody know what song that is?
Anybody?
Birthday to you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So that was well identified. I'm going to sing you another song. Now you can tell me what song this is. Da 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 da. Anybody? What song is that? What if I what if I told you all that it was also
Happy birthday
happy
to you.
birthday to you?
Happy birthday.
A detuned version of happy birthday to you.
Sorry?
A detuned version of happy birthday to you.
Could you be more specific? Arjun, that's totally right, but yes.
I mean, just you just had the beat without the.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So I'm just going to explain this. I'll show it again one more time and then explain why they are both happy birthday. So one is da 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 da, and the other one is da 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 da. Now there are two aspects, broadly speaking, that make sound into music. Apart from the more esoteric aspects of soul and emotion, two tangible aspects are there. Now, I think that the reason Arjun mentioned he was able to identify that both of the tunes I hummed were Happy Birthday is because actually one was nicely tuneful. The actual way Happy Birthday is both as a melody and a beat. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And the other version that I did, it had only one note. Da-da-da-da-da-da. But even then, there are two things that it had. There is one thing that both of them had similar. Of course, the note was different. The second time I did, the note was just one note. But the thing that was similar is this. So, what is similar there? That is the beat. The beat was similar both in the and in the the beat is similar. The beat is identical, in fact. It's only in one of them there is no note change. It is flat, bland, and monotonous. And in the other one, there is also a note change. And but both of them have the similarity of this similarity is the beat, the percussion, the rhythm. These are all synonyms. And I think they are synonyms ultimately for time passing. Essentially, as we sit here in this webinar together, we're also moving step by step, not in a morbid way, from one side of life to another side of life. And even that has its own rhythm. So essentially, rhythm or beat or percussion is just a synonym for time passing for both of them. Could anybody else tell me what was different for both the versions of Happy Birthday?
The tonality, no? I mean, there was a
Absolutely. Yeah,
monotone beat.
absolutely. The tune was different. The melody or the note was different. So, broadly, generally speaking, music can be understood as just these two parts. You got a beat, you got a note. You got a rhythm, you got a tune. You got a percussion, you got a melody. And to simplify things down to such a base level, I find has been uniquely useful in my sound therapy approach as well. I have also, now I can maybe slightly digress the topic and change it more towards my work with therapy. Um, I find that many people who are currently in the sound healing space have come from an approach where they've either been in corporate and quit their job, had a traumatic life event, a change in phase, that has led them to this aspect of sound somehow. For me, although that is true as well, I have had a long standing relationship with sound from my childhood and quite a long standing relationship with music. And I dare say, quite a deep one and a well understood relationship with music and an intuitively well understood relationship at that, not just one that um, has blindly followed classical format as a mugging and vomiting, almost like our Indian education systems can be even till today. Um, so this intuitive understanding of musicality, I find, has really provided me some uniqueness in this sound journey, sound bath, and sound healing space. I also attended a workshop program last year at Swaram, the ISSP. Swaram is the Sound Healing and Sound Research Institute in Auroville, and they have this integrated sonic practices 4 module workshop. I attended the first module. It was quite an intensive session from 6:30 in the morning to 9:30 at night, 6 days in a row. But through that time, we did many activities and understood sound through many different lenses. And I found that it was a great time for me to do this workshop last year as I was working there. And they were very gracious to let me also take part in it. Um, I found it came at the right time because that's what I had been doing for the previous few years, anyways, understanding using sound as a lens and understanding it via varied portals or understanding varied aspects of life using sound as a lens itself. So, I would like to touch on a few concepts that I have both intuitively developed and that I have also studied about that I find has great value. So, when you look at instruments like singing bowls and gongs, the
Mhm.
depth of their reverberation is so true and so unique that it's quite easy in some ways for anyone to make nice sound.
Yeah,
However,
that's true.
yeah, but the sensibility of playing it, like 3 times a week for corporates or communities of 20 to 200 people, um, in particular ways, one does start to notice and observe that a large metal gong is not meant to be just smashed. In fact, if so, same thing with the singing bowl. To be honest, I have also observed repercussions and consequence of powerful vibration in terms of not such a smooth flow in the process or somebody getting very jarred up.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
shaken up.
just too sudden because they're so deep in that meditative state, and suddenly there's a
Exactly.
big gong.
Exactly. So, I mean, I find a lot of value for sure, but also immensely powerful, and therefore I think needs to be played with some tact. And more than that, I find it's a little bit unfortunate that these two main instruments have been mainstreamed already in cities like nascent Indian cities where sound healing is not still a big thing, but quite nascent. It still already has been mainstream, these instruments. Like one needs to get them to start their practice. And this is something that my practice, not just with sound
Mhm.
journeys, but with music and workshops and reviving indigenous instruments, it it's almost the opposite. It's intuitive. And it's like you use what you have around you and you jugaad it and you try to not to be stingy, but try to be smart. You try to emulate and try to copy nature's sounds in any way that you can. I'd also like to make a small segue to tell people that about 8 or 9 years ago, I quit my job as a music journalist, and I spent till today working in various rural, off the grid, and alternative communities and schools around India. So I find that this has also played into my sensibilities for these instruments. Not just that, I was teaching at a Jiddu Krishnamurti school in Kodaikanal called Sholay. and I'm still affiliated to a community connected to it called Yane Kadu, which means
Mhm.
elephant land in Tamil. These spaces, firstly, are completely off the grid, so they run off solar power and micro hydroelectric on cloudy days. So after over 8.5 years visiting these areas, I know how to operate solar. Somebody's Amanda has been to Shole. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. I taught there for 3 years, and I've been part of Yanikara since its birth, which is 3 years ago. Um, yeah, essentially, living in a completely cyclical system is really nice, and to see the extents that we can do it is quite was quite eye-opening for me. I had to learn how to understand batteries and wiring and solar panels. Similarly, all the kaka from our potty, it goes into biogas and we use it for cooking. So again, we had to understand how to like set up biogas systems. What is the mixture? How much methane is produced? How much cow poop? Can we use human poop? What vegetable waste? So, I mean, there are factors for everything. Same thing with natural water pumping systems, organic farming. And yeah, I think that these also have led to my sensibilities, even when it comes to teaching music or taking sound healing workshops or practices. So yeah, within this space, I use as many instruments, not just the singing bowl and the gong. I use the didgeridoo, I use the morsing, I use the froggy, and many other ones as well. I find that there is a flow
Mhm.
that the entire event can have, and if one is able to merely understand the ritual of the flow as a facilitator, then no matter the situation, the sound journey would be a successful one because every situation is so diverse, every person is so
Right.
different. As we are connected, our diversity is our resilience also, just like bacteria. And I think that in that space, a good facilitator, not just in sound journeys and sound therapy, but for anything, is not just an expert at what they do, but an expert of understanding how it places in the holistic aspect of life. So, in that sense, I think that bringing that sensibility, I've allowed for a lot of randomness to enter, but in its own space. And I find that I really like that approach, both not just in my sound healing, but also with my education, my work with currently I'm teaching 2 days a week at a school in North Bangalore. But I also have a lot of private students. If anybody wants to learn more about or pick up any of these instruments, also feel free to reach out. Um, so this approach, I think there are three things that really people don't focus on too much today. One is tone, one is rhythm, which we spoke about. Um, the third one is pattern. And when it comes to sound healing and sound journeys, I don't see anybody doing this. And what I mean by pattern is that there are certain rhythms, certain patterns of rhythms, certain patterns, perhaps even of melodies, that even a mind that is not listening, consciously even not listening to the sound, will
Mhm.
subliminally pick up if played over a longer enough period of time or repeated enough times, even in a short period. So these patterns of rhythms or patterns of melody can even be quite convoluted at the end. They can end up like really intricate. But so long as they start slow and then they start like intermingling and then they build up and become finally some chaos and then maybe disentangle and come back, then no matter whether the person who is experiencing it is consciously aware or not, I have noticed that these patterns have subliminal effects. And this is something that I feel is quite unique to the approach I am doing. And I would really, really like to work more on this and understand more of this. This is just a personal thing of mine because I've been thinking about it a lot more, and my practice has increased in frequency over the last 6 months, even though I've been practicing for the last 5 years. So it's something I'm just really curious about. And if anybody on this in this webinar would like to talk with me more about this concept, about these patterns, subliminal patterns, and their effect on the human mind, subliminal sound patterns, then please do reach out because I love talking about it. So I think just a couple more things I wanted to give a few examples, if that's okay, Priya.
Yes, please. I was about to
Okay.
ask you, do you have a few examples you can share with us? You literally just read my mind.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, an example literally of this pattern thing, I'll try and do on the ditch. Just let me know if you can hear this.
Yeah, we can hear this one too.
Because it does require quite a long period of time. But what I can explain to you is that the pattern for the didgeridoo is I take a long breath and then stop and take a
Mm-hmm.
audible inhale and then start on the long breath again. And I just keep doing this. However, after 3 or 4 times, I build up and add patterns inside that long breath, still making sure to stop it and inhale at the same time, and then start the breath again. Soon, it's no longer just a long breath of and then, but it's filled up, and I've slowly filled it up. So it's like and then once it's filled up fully, then I start removing the intricacy, the layers, the levels, till it once more goes to just find that these type of patterns play a subconscious role, and they're very predominant in tribal therapeutic healing modalities from around the world. Not just that, I find that sound therapy itself
Mm-hmm.
is not in isolation in any tribal practice, just as Ayurveda or so many, I mean, ancient
Right.
medicine. Everything is so holistically intertwined. There is a tribe somewhere, I forget where, Papua New Guinea or something, where the teenage boy, he's gone and done some wrong, maybe like done naughty with a young girl, or he's gone and stolen something, or killed an animal that he shouldn't have, or broken something. And the tribe asks him to sit in the center of the circle. They sit around him and they sing him his name. And they're
Oh.
singing his name and singing him his name until this boy, this child, this whoever actually breaks down completely. They are disintegrated by the community love that's being shot at them. And it's more than enough to like completely remove any, they're sorrowful, then they're grateful, they're thankful, they're regretful, they are apologetic, they understand. And this is all, in a sense, almost non-verbal, just like sound therapy. So it's almost like the vibration of the person's voice, and because the person has formed a link with it since their birth, has this
Right.
powerful effect, especially with the community. So I find that quite fascinating. This is a separate side story, is that there's also a tribe in Papua New Guinea who doesn't have names for uncles and aunties or grandmothers and grandfathers. I think there's mother and father, but then the rest are all the same. Extended family becomes the same word. However, the same tribe has 52 names for the same kind of fish as it grows through its life. The fish that they hunt off the coast and the cliffs, off the coast of the cliffs. As the fish grows from a baby fish, it's a type of sunfish, I think. As it grows from a baby fish to a giant one, the tribals have 52 different names for that one fish. Don't even have a name for their uncle or auntie. So this interesting concept shows how closely we're linked with nature, and how language for sure is amazingly important, but also just a tool like anything else. And I find that it's a tool in our audio stimuli. Sometimes when I'm sleeping at home and I hear the mixie in the morning, I don't have to go to the kitchen and see my mom on the mixie to know that we're going to eat idli chutney. Sound is a very crucial and overstimulated and underutilized sensory stimuli, I feel. And just as much as we can taste and touch and see and smell, so can we hear. Just a little bit more about the concept I'd like to touch on. Nada yoga is is a very ancient concept, another yogic practice. Nada meaning sound, yoga meaning union. Um, Very simply, as a layman, Nada yoga, imagine just humming a note like ah. If in fact everybody can just go ah right now, go for it. Okay, and then when you going ah, you can close your mouth and go ah. Stay with that vibration of ah, but with the mouth, the lips sealed, but you're making the sound of ah. Very good. We can even try with ooh, ooh, and then you close your mouth. Mm, or e, e, and then we have closed mouth. Mm. So even these simple sounds have very unique vibrations, and the more we tune into them, we can perhaps even feel them in certain areas of our body. But the concept of Nada Yoga and the understanding of ancients with how our chakras align, with how our bodies are all essentially just vibration and frequency, of how Om or Aum is the primordial sound which contains everything, and how vibration, there's evidence even if you look at Ajanta and Ellora caves, which seem to be just hollowed out
Mm-hmm.
into the. So, I mean, most popular consensus is that there were sound guns that were used to vaporize and disintegrate solid matter such as rocks, because everything resonates at a particular frequency. And I think a lot of the shaman, sadhu, druids back in the day also worked with sound. They would go into the forests and the plants would speak to them, and they would also know the names, the true names
Right.
of things. So knowing the name of something often gives one power over that. So in that way, just sort of a brief holistic concept of what sound therapy can mean within a tribal, intuitive, and contemporary paradigm. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Siddharth. Thank you for all of these stories that you shared, especially the African one, which literally just says, whatever the question, love is the answer. It just reminds me of that, just instead of
Absolutely.
hating on them and, just show them more love. It's just such a beautiful concept and it's really, really nice. I can
Was
only imagine how much more interesting your workshops are going to be. Really, this was literally just like
that.
one tiny trailer. Okay, I'm gonna open it out to audience for any question because I know we just have very few minutes left. So, does anyone have
Right.
any questions for Sid? If not, I have a bunch.
Anybody, please feel free to reach out and ask anything about anything. Totally open.
Sid's like AMA, ask me anything.
So all when you say ah and ooh and all, but when you close your lips, then it all becomes no, that sound. Mm.
Because when the lips are closed, we are not able to create an open sound outside. But imagine that you go into a room, a small room, a square room, where one of the doors is in the center of one of the sides. You enter the door, you close the door, and you face into the room. Now, when you make a sound, the sound cannot go outside the room. So, in a sense, when I asked you to close your lips, it is giving you a physical limitation to creating those open sounds. Oo, ah, e. However, the physical limitation is only at the level of your lips to prevent it from going outside. But the concept of saying oo, ah, or e actually starts from here. It is only stopping at your lips because I had requested you to close them. And therefore, at that space, right at the edge of your face, at the end of the lips, there will be a little bit of naturally because it's closed. But if you look at the oo, e, or ah, it is starting here. The lips are closed. But if you try it again, you can see that it starts from here. So the is the door stopper, essentially.
Nice. Very interesting. I mean,
And
your
how does
entire lecture
sorry,
was very.
I'm glad you liked. Sorry?
I was like, how does this Nada yoga help? What does it do for you?
Well, I mean, it is a practice of understanding the human body and outside things via vibration. What it does for each person, again, I think if you were listening to the whole talk, this idea of holistic nature should be evident from what I've been speaking, because in my music teaching and in my work with sustainability and with these tribal practices, it's not just about one thing. So just like normal hatha yoga, nada yoga, it's not like I can say, if you do this, it will help you in this way.
Mm.
There are numerous benefits, and we also have a certain amount of accuracy with which to say that certain things can help with certain things. But from my understanding of Nada Yoga, also my approach as an intuitive learner and teacher, I find that it's more a holistic thing. For me, Nada Yoga, when I practice as part of my routine in the morning, firstly gives me a sense of groundedness. I'm also super talkative in life. So this practice of keeping my lips shut and making these sounds somehow makes me feel like I've spoken quite a bit, even though nobody's listening, and it's good. I don't end up talking as much. But there's far more. I think that Nada Yoga holds a very deep potential, just like a lot of our ancient Indian systems, which somehow they seem to know it all. But just like many other tribal systems around the world, especially with sound, I think that it has a unique potential. Nada Yoga actually has a lot of classifications. There are 10 types of sound within Nada Yoga. Some, the sound of flutes, the sound of different types of skins, the sound of waterfalls and thunder. There are different categories, 10 types of sounds. There are different types of ways we listen to the sound by just listening. Are we mentally focusing? Are we psychologically and spiritually focusing? Or we're collectively spiritually focusing? So it depends on which level of layer we're listening to. So I find that all fascinating. I can't give you one exact answer, madam, as to um how Nada Yoga would help. I don't know what Swara Yoga is. Swara sounds more like it's focusing more on just the notes. And I think that Swar Yoga in that way is a subcategory of Nada Yoga. But I think Swara Yoga may also have a lot more to do with music in general. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Any more questions from anyone? Sid, you know, in the shamanic tradition, they use a lot of drums. Have you been exposed to that? Do you use drums as well?
I personally don't have a shaman drum, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my friends are shamanic practitioners. I have been fortunate to attend a few ceremonies myself from shamans from Peru and the Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think percussion is just so primal in the way I do my sound therapy that it connects straight up. I think chanting is another aspect I forgot, which again connects up very much to shamanism. But yeah, with the drum, as part of my community in Kodaikanal, we had a retreat last year called Songs of the Forest, which was an instrument making and an intuitive music exploration retreat for 4 days. So one of the
Oh,
participants,
wow.
she made a shaman drum, and it came out so well. We made it out of the back of a 20-liter water can and some old bongo skin, which we soaked in turmeric water and re-cured. So it came out very, very well.
Wow. That's really nice. And also in your music therapy sessions, how do you really craft them? And I know you have a different style. I think you call it as what, a techno electric music style, where you integrate your electric guitar as well as all of these other instruments. Can you tell
This
us a
is for
little
my
more
live
about it?
music, not for my music
No,
therapy, sound
not for
therapy,
therapy.
not for therapy. This
Okay.
is, I mean, it can be
Yeah, I was
therapeutic.
wondering how
Uh,
that worked. So.
yeah, so I also perform live. I'm also a musician, not
Mhm.
just a sound therapist or a workshop facilitator. So with the music performances, it's nice electronic beats
Yeah.
I mix them with Carnatic style guitars,
Okay.
and I do live looping of instruments like these. So essentially, there's like a flow, but it's quite unique because people don't use these instruments as much in
Right.
electronic music or in any music in general anymore.
Mhm.
And mix that with a Carnatic style of electric guitar. So that's essentially it's quite a far long way out if you look at it in isolation. But when
Mhm.
you listen to it, I think I sent you also a few links, Priya. If you listen to the style of the sound, maybe you'll find a connection to even the workshops, the tribal instruments, and the sound therapy as well. Because I am the connection, but it's a little bit further away. It's a little bit more danceable and party oriented, I dare say,
That's
a little
nice.
bit.
That's nice.
Mhm.
And
Siddharth,
some of these instruments.
sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry,
I
Arjun,
had
go
a
ahead.
question. I had a question.
uh-huh.
Should I go ahead? Okay. So, you mentioned about the Papua New Guinea and the therapeutic practices that they follow. Somehow,
Uh-huh.
sound therapy has got very popular nowadays. Do you have any other sort of examples of how people used music solely as a therapeutic modality, like the ancients, any of the ancient civilizations
Yeah.
that
So
can
just
you
going
highlight some
back
of
to
those?
our own Nada Yoga again, the subcategory in Nada Yoga called Swara Yoga. Somebody had asked what is Swara Yoga. Right now I'm referring to the subcategory of Nada Yoga. Quite of what ragas to play to cure what ailments. Certain people have a liver issue, maybe in the 1200s, under the king's rulership in maybe the pre-Cholan Empire of South India. Just giving an example, because this has happened all over places where Nada Yoga was practiced. Understanding of how different notes, different vibrations, and the relationship between notes, which is a hugely important thing, how they affect healing or how they affect the body and cellular. So I think that I actually had a notebook which I seem to have left in my car, which highlighted this very same thing. I wanted to read it out, but I think that Bhairav and a few other ragas relate directly to the liver. There are a few that relate to the gut. There are sub factors to do with the timing of the day, and of course, understanding someone's nadi, which is the pulse. But again, because it's so holistic, even the examples that I had, which are in my car right now, are also tied into other aspects. So, of course, if somebody is having a liver problem, it's not like they can go on a drinking binge, come back home, and then I'll play them this raga and it'll be fine. But rather, they have to also perhaps eat a particular type of plant, perhaps also not drink at that point, and then at the right time of day, be in a quieted, calm zone, and then be subject to listening to this raga would have a gigantic impact. Similarly, for different parts of the body, like for example, there is a medicine, I forgot the name of an Ayurvedic medicine which works for people with psychosis, which is elongating of the synapses, and it can also happen to people during depression. I feel that yeah, I'm 34 years old right now, and I think 3 years ago, for the first and only time in my life, I went through a depressive period or phase. It was about 2 or 3 months, and I was taking this Ayurvedic suppository. It's not a pharmaceutical one, but it was quite a strong one, and I could feel that it was calming my brain waves literally. It's not a sensation I enjoyed, but perhaps it was necessary for me in what I was going through at that time. However, for similar states of psychosis, it has been noted that patterns, so these are tals, have have an effect on the brain, and likewise also swaras. So Arjun, for in response to the question, it's like in Nada Yoga, there is quite a documented connection between ragas and their effects on cellular levels of parts of the body.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you so much. In fact, there is a speaker who's going to be, the next speaker in line
Mm-hmm.
also is someone who's going to touch upon these ragas and their therapeutic effect.
Wonderful.
So, in the same lines. So I was also thinking, if there are any other sort of cultures apart from our own, which also had, like you had mentioned about the Papua New Guinea. But that's interesting. Thanks for sharing.
That's right.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from anyone? Nope. Okay, Siddharth, thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely. I wish we had more time with you, but we're already 5 minutes over. So thank you very, very much. I definitely enjoyed your session, and we'll be looking forward to hear from you on different workshops that we probably host with you and Sarveda in collaboration, or other sessions that you're hosting. So thank you very, very, very much. And we request everybody here to please sign up for our newsletter so you're up to date on our upcoming events. And follow us on social media as well. And Siddharth's social media name as well, which is Zencat. And Sarveda has 2 social media pages, which is Sarveda Life as well as Sarveda Shala. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.